Okay, that's recording started.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to this week's Call Scotland webinar. Just before we start, to let you know that this session is being recorded, so if you have your camera on, you will be on the video. So if you do not wish to be seen on the video recording afterwards, if you can turn your camera off, please. Other than that, feel free to keep them on. We're very happy this afternoon to welcome Rachel Wolffsohn from OHMI. Rachel is the General Manager of OHMI, who work with people with physical difficulties in making accessible musical instruments and music accessible for a whole range of people. So I'm just going to pass over to Rachel to get started. Just to let you know, if you have any questions, if you could please type them into the chat, and then at the end of Rachel's session we'll have an opportunity to ask the questions and to have a bit of chat at the end. So thanks very much, Rachel, for joining us, and I'll pass over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I've got a few slides so that you can actually see some equipment and some videos of things in use, so I'm going to try and share my screen. Can you see that? Yes, brilliant. So OHMI has been going for just over 10 years and was started because any impairment in hands, fingers probably makes traditional instruments as you would know them and recognise them unplayable. So that will include trumpets, violins, guitars, drum kits, anything that you might come across in schools or in general musical life. And so our work is about finding ways that we can enable people with a range of physical impairments to participate. And obviously there are lots of reasons why people might have restricted use of hands and arms. They might not have them, or they might have acquired a disability or a trauma, or they might have been born with conditions like cerebral palsy. So all of those people and many more other type of people we aim to support. We've gone about finding instruments through many ways, but the primary source is our competition. So this takes place every 2 years and has two different categories that I'm going to talk about today, and a third category about ideas. So if you've got any ideas, keep an eye out, because you might be able to share them with us in future. But for the moment, we're just going to concentrate on the other two categories. So the main category here is about playable instruments. So this is instruments that you can just pick up and play as they are. So on the screen, we've got various saxophones, we've got one-handed recorders, we've got a guitar solution called a Chapman Stick, one-handed flute, one-handed bagpipes, and one-handed clarinet. And the goal for those, as far as the competition goes, is that they're capable of doing absolutely everything that the standard instrument is capable of, but without the use of one hand or arm. It's a very measurable goal, and judges can decide whether the instrument has met that goal. But it also means that however talented, motivated you are to practice or anything else, the instrument is not the limiting factor of how far you take your instrument. And by finding solutions to recognise instruments, you are then able to participate in any kind of musical activity, be that school lessons, music exams, or later on in ensembles of any genre, so orchestras, jazz bands, rock bands, whatever you might like to do. You've got the instrument that will fit in the same way as your able-bodied peers. Now, we're in Scotland, you're in Scotland, I'm not in Scotland. So I thought I would share today a couple of videos from two of our Scottish children that we've worked with, either supplying instruments or supporting in other ways. And you'll notice in the bottom line of photos, third one across from the left, that's the bagpipe chanter. It's a standard bagpipe chanter, but it's got some digital material inside it, and it's been programmed so that it can be played with just one hand. And I'm going to play you a little clip of a tune you might well recognise here. There we go. Now you'll notice in that image that the young lady playing is able to hold the bagpipes on her arm, but she hasn't got the dexterity in her fingers to operate the chanter. It can also be used without the bag, so that you can just make the music without the bag. And then at the bottom of the digital chanter, there's a little Bluetooth transmitter, so it goes to a speaker. So it could go to a small speaker, to headphones, or to you know, a big sound system if you needed it to. So all of those instruments you'll probably have noticed are woodwind and guitars. They are typically the ones that we have most success with in that playable category, because reworking key work allows us to get around all of the keys that would normally be operated with 10 fingers with just 5. It does generally make them the most expensive category of instruments as well. Not so much the bagpipes, to be fair, but the clarinets and saxophones and flutes are expensive because they're made by artisan makers. They're not made in large quantities in factories across the world. But I'll talk about how we can access those in a second. That's the first category. The second category then is about enabling apparatus. So this is where we use stands, harnesses and any other devices to support a standard instrument. So you'll see some examples on the screen here. We've got a trumpet with a floor stand, a trombone with a floor stand, and a cello. The cello is actually on a wooden, imagine a low coffee table upside down. So we've got 4 legs sticking upwards to support the cello in the right position for the player. And this was actually created for a young lady who was born with no arms at all. The cello she's playing is a perfectly standard cello, completely unaltered. The bow is also unaltered, but she's got a 3D printed cover for the point where your fingers would normally go, so that she can grip it with her toes. And just to show the sort of standard a child, she was 16 in the video I'm about to show, can reach using this this technique, I've got a little video of her playing. It was at the end of a music camp, so it was a little bit of a I'm nervous performance, but it's well worth watching anyway. She did play the whole piece, but I kept it short for today because we were a bit short on time. So the main things that we're looking for when we're working with people is how you're going to hold the instrument. You can see some examples there, some you've already seen, but the first picture on the left is of Felix Klieser. I don't know if any of you have come across Felix. He's a German French horn player who plays, he again was born with no hands at all, and he plays with his feet. He's a professional French horn player and has just got a position with Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, so you might see him around the UK a little bit more than before. The important thing with holding the instrument is that the instrument is held in a way that you can play it without causing any problem to any other part of your body. Obviously, if we've got one hand that's working really well and one hand that's perhaps struggling with things, we don't want to cause damage to the hand that's working well, because then we're going to leave more problems. We also need to make sure that backs and necks and other parts of the body are really in a good position. When we're holding the instrument, it's also got to allow the player to be able to let go in some way, so that you could turn the music, brush your hair out your face, whatever we all, what we normally do, so that the instrument is stable and it's not teetering on something, and the minute we breathe it all falls over. So it's making sure it's really secure, but comfortable and in a convenient place for everything that needs to happen with the playing. Then we're going to be looking at how you're going to operate the instrument. So there's a picture here on the left hand side of the trumpet on a stand, But as well as operating the valves, some more advanced players need to be able to operate tuning slides. So we've got one solution here. There are many. This is one which involves brake cables from a bike and some very mechanical system. We've got other electronic systems. The next picture across, we've got a picture, close-up picture of the toggle key saxophone, which was our very first competition winner. I'm not a saxophonist, so excuse me if I get my technology wrong, but basically the keys to the right-hand side of the picture would be operated, in this case, with the right hand, as you would normally, but there's an extra set of keys on the left-hand side of the instrument that can also be operated with the right hand. And then there's a bridging key. Those black vertical bars are a bridging key when you need both keys operated. The next picture along is a fairly standard school recorder in shape, but we've got keys. So in between the what would be the lower of the two hands, we've got keys that operate the holes that would normally be operated by the upper of the two hands. And I've got a video of that instrument in use in a minute. And then the last picture on the right hand side is of a clarinet which has got some bespoke key work. So you saw a picture a few slides ago of a one-handed clarinet. This isn't a one-handed clarinet, but this was developed for a student who'd got some short fingers on both her hands, and so these key extensions were added and some closed hole keys, which are not usual on a clarinet, so that she could reach the keys. And you can see that they've got an Allen key screw thread at the top so that they can be adjusted so that they can fit comfortably to the fingers even as she grows. So again, we're looking at how we can get around the instrument to make sure that all the notes that you might need are reachable in a comfortable way. This picture is of a cello group at the camp that I referred to earlier, where the girl was playing the cello. And you can see here we've got 6 different cellos, most of them being played in different ways. And so the most important thing is your ability to make music. It doesn't really matter where your instrument is situated, as long as it's not causing your body any harm. So we've got people playing with their feet. We've got somebody, the girl in blue has got arthrogryposis, and she's playing with her cello in a similar position to the girls playing with their feet, but at a higher level, because that's where she could reach. And the lad on the right hand side is playing with the cello with the bow in the opposite hand to usual, and he's using, he actually was missing most of the fingers on his right hand side, but he was using the bone structure he did have to change the notes. And when I, prior to working for OHMI, I was a secondary school music teacher. I had cello groups, and I took some of the music I played with my cello groups in, you know, normal schools activities that we do at lunchtime and so on. And I took this to the camp, and they would just pick up the music and carry on. So to look at the photo, there looks like 6 people playing, but actually in terms of music making, we were just making music, and it would have sounded, if I put the 2 groups side by side, very similar. I said I was going to play you a little video of the recorder in use. This is another one of our Scottish contacts, and he's playing a piece that I think he's just about to do for his grade 4 in the next few weeks. So there we go. We hope he does well in his grade 4. And we do know of people who've even done grade 8 on a recorder. So the sky's the limit. It's not down to the recorder as much as working and pursuing your endeavours the same as everybody. So just a little mention about the OHMI Hire scheme. This is a way that you can access instruments and apparatus to try them. We're very aware that the cost of a lot of this equipment is much higher than a standard piece of kit. So the hire scheme offers a chance to try something for at least a year. the standard rental period is a year. Sometimes we get schools requesting things for a year when their children are going to be doing a musical activity for that academic year, but anybody can hire from us at all. And I run it like a library. If the book, if the book wants to be renewed and nobody else wants it, you can renew it. So here, if the instrument, if the hirer wants to renew the instrument for another year and nobody else wants it, that's fine. The priority is about that testing period though. And we aim to charge no more than 15% of the new purchase price. Some are actually quite a lot less where the instruments are very expensive. It's aimed at individuals of all ages, children, adults, doesn't matter to us how old people are, but schools, music hubs, even Drake Music, we were just talking about, have hired equipment from us as well. So it's open to anybody that would benefit from it. But it's a good way of testing, particularly with children where, this week they want to do music and next week they want to do football. It's a way of testing the principle and seeing if they're interested, seeing if the equipment's the right piece of equipment for them, and so on. And then if people want to purchase for themselves, we'll support ways for that to happen as well. So that's all I wanted to run through, but I wanted to allow some time for some questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you don't need to look at that. But if anyone's got any questions, then please shout.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can just pop your mic on or type them into the chat. Thanks very much, Rachel. While you were speaking, just a few comments on enjoying the performances there from your cellist and your recorder player. Somebody here, Brian, saying he has a Chapman Stick on hire from OHMI. What's a Chapman Stick? Forgive my ignorance.
Well, Brian might want to tell you himself, but it was the guitar solution that was in one of the screens on playable instruments.
Right.
Yes. Do you want to explain more, Brian?
Yeah, it looks a lot like an electric guitar. It's got quite a long scale length, and the one I've got is an alto, which has 10 strings, and you play it by tapping it. So I was involved in an incident last year. And I've played the guitar since I was 13 years old, and I can no longer play an ordinary guitar, but I've hired a Chapman Stick and I can produce, well, it's not music yet, maybe one day, but yeah, you can play it by tapping. And so it makes it accessible if you've got no grip, or even if if you don't have many fingers, you can still tap the string, and you don't need to tap it very hard at all to produce a sound. It is an electronic instrument, but there are some acoustic instruments as well. Rachel, I haven't told you about those yet. A thing called a Dragonfly. I'm talking to the maker of, and I want to try and get him to put something in the competition. But no, it's a real. I think that I described it as I was in a pretty dark tunnel, and OHMI gave me one of those really super bright LED lights to see my way out of it. So yeah, really great.
That's great.
The other thing that's it's a kind of entry-level version of a Chapman Stick, which hasn't been mentioned so far, but it's quite useful for schools. I'm going to see if I can turn off my blur because that's not helping. Just excuse my messy room. This is what's called an artiphon. So this works in a very similar playing principle to the Chapman Stick, where you. Oh, sorry. I'll just show you. Where you press on the strings, and again, like the Chapman Stick, just that action makes the sound. You don't need to be doing anything at this end. So that's quite a good entry-level instrument. The Chapman Sticks are great for adults, but they're quite large for children. So if you're working with children in schools, the artiphon is an easier way to go. And they're readily available and not so expensive as Chapman Sticks either, which is always a good thing, isn't it?
Shirley's saying the Linstrument looks really interesting.
Yes, so the Linstrument is another digital musical instrument that was developed by Roger Lynn in the 80s. It's very versatile in that you can, again, position it in different places to suit. So you could put it on the table, but you can also play it in guitar position, or, you know, any position to suit you. I would say you do need a reasonable music technology level to be able to operate it. It's one of those instruments that's got so many options. If you're not sure what you're doing, there are many places where you can sort of fall over yourself. So if you've got that musical technology, go for it. It's a great instrument in the right hands, but it does need a little bit of knowledge to be able to operate it, and also a reasonably good device to attach it to. It goes through a computer or you know, something like that. So you do need a reasonably high spec computer to make it work and to give it the full functionality. But yes, it's a great instrument. Kids love it. It lights up and looks pretty, and it's great fun.
Yeah, I've got a question actually. So, for example, it tends to be, is it more parents who go about loaning the instruments, or if it's through a school, do you need to do it through your music teacher, or how does the kind of process work?
So we are a very small organisation, and the advantage of that is that if anybody talks to us, we can just deal with the situation you're in, which makes it easier, I think. We do have, I think it depends on the circumstances as to what's preferable. If the parents are looking for something for their child, then, you know, we're very happy to work with parents and find the solution that they want. I think if schools are offering whole class, I don't know how much that's a thing in Scotland, it definitely is in England, but where the whole class will learn something. I think the young lady playing the bagpipes, I think she may originally have been in a whole class bagpipe chanter group in primary school. Then I think it's probably down to the schools really to be, oh, there are the bagpipes, down to the schools to be providing the same piece of equipment as, you know, everybody else, so that the child from the first week can get going along with the class, rather than there being an embarrassing pause where the teacher doesn't quite know what to do with the child that's presented, and it's all a bit awkward. So we're very keen to work with schools in those circumstances. Obviously, if it's a situation where the primary school are offering the opportunity to have lessons that the parents are buying in, then it's a bit more of a grey area as to who takes responsibility for the child that's coming in. Again, as generally, I would say whoever normally does probably should be the person in this circumstance. But I think probably parents are most motivated to find solutions for their children when it's a choice thing.
And I suppose when the instrument is loaned out, is there some kind of training for the person supporting them into how to use it?
Absolutely. I think most of our instruments are, if you spend an hour with them, you will get your head around them quite quickly. They resemble the standard equivalent, and if you've got a teacher going in who's used to teaching the clarinet, it will take them a little minute to kind of get their head around what's going on. But once they've had that initial time on their own with the instrument, they'll probably be well on the way. And I would say that most of the teachers we work with actually enjoy this. It's, you know, that everybody else teaches they're teaching the same instrument all the time, and suddenly this is not quite the same, but close enough that they can get there, and it just is something different for them to experience on their professional journey too. So I think generally they quite enjoy it once they got over their initial panic.
Yeah, imagine. I think David's got a question. David, would you like to put your mic on?
Hi, I'm actually a parent, not a music teacher. My son's 9 and he has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, so a progressive muscle weakness. He's taken up the saxophone, and he's moved on to...
I had a call from your teacher yesterday.
Yes, would it be Mrs. Barron?
I can't remember who it was, but I definitely had that case.
She invited me along to ask awkward questions. So we've tried all sorts of solutions with Harry. So he tries a harness. Sadly, he's got some central weakness just now, and he might have some fractures in his back. So posture's a big thing for him just now. Yeah. So the soprano sax, I think is a soprano sax, a curved soprano sax, I was told to say that. Yeah. It's quite cumbersome for him to hold. Now he's got a special chair in school, but we've moved all the posture supports to open a leg up to allow him to reach the bottom notes and so on. So we're looking for some solution for holding this for him, but we don't know how we access it.
Okay, so saxophone is probably one where we've had most solutions through the competition and least first-hand experience because they're so expensive. However, there has been a saxophone recently, and I can send you a link if you want to drop me an email afterwards. I can send you a link to it. There has been a soprano saxophone that was developed for somebody who had a complete arm amputation, and so I can definitely find out what that stand. I'm pretty sure it was a floor stand that then allowed him to play. So if it can take the weight of an adapted instrument, I'm sure there's a way of making it fit a standard instrument as well. So I will get back to you on that. But there are solutions out there.
Okay, thanks. Paul saying, yep, he's mentioning Dylan's instrument, Brian Dylan's instruments in the chat there. Another link. Paul, do you want to say something about that?
That's not a name that's familiar to me, so any information would be very welcome.
Paul, are you there? He's put a link into the.
Sorry, I think my microphone was off.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's there's a couple of devices that the company make. One's called a magic flute, and another one's called the groove tube. And you probably come across them, but it's worthwhile popping them in.
Yeah, certainly across the magic flute. Yeah, that's my breath, my music, isn't it? Holland.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's really designed for, I think, for people that have got very good breath control, but very little movement. So perhaps, spinal injury, for example, I suppose would be the most obvious one.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, My Breath, My Music are doing some great work over in the Netherlands, so definitely worth Googling them and seeing the things that they've got around.
Okay, anybody else got anything to ask or add? Well, you're having a think, Rachel, so if anyone wants to find out more, what's the best route to go down to get in contact with you?
So our website is allthews.ohmi.org.uk, and my email address is Rachel, RACHEL @ohmi.org.uk. So please feel free to contact me afterwards with any questions. We don't, I'll be my first to put my hand up and say we don't have all the answers, but if we don't have the answer for you or your situation, we're very happy to try and find it, because then we've got it for the next person coming along. So it might not be as instant sometimes as I'd like it to be, but we're always very happy to try and find solutions where we don't have any already.
Great. Okay, I don't think there's any more questions just now. Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you very much, Rachel, for joining us today. It's been really interesting and very inspiring. And just to let you know that the recording of this session will be available from tomorrow up on the website in the archive section of the webinars. So you can send it on to other colleagues and share the information with them. Okay, right, I think we're going to stop there. We'll just stop the recording. Thanks, Robert. Some comments coming up there. Rachel saying thanks very much. All the best to you and all the musicians.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks, that's really, really great. And yeah, we'll be able to share that information with all our networks up here as well.
Brilliant.